coming tonight. I have the pleasure of welcoming Bob Evans back to this void. As we know, he's a world-class photographer and an accomplished scuba diver. He's made over 5,000 dives, 850 of them documenting the scenes below the offshore oil platforms in the Santa Barbara Channel. You have seen the result of those expeditions in the display that he has called Marine Megatropolis. Tonight he will take the concept of marine megatropolis a step further. Imagine living and working offshore in an atmospheric pressure habitat located within the structure of what is today an oil platform. You would be known as an aquanaut. Join him envisioning a future where we are as excited about ocean exploration as we are about space. Furthermore, learn how the tools for realizing that vision exist now. Let's give a warm welcome to Bob Evans.
Hello?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight and being at this wonderful museum again. Every time I come here, I'm amazed at all the beautiful models that you have. This has come an exciting presentation tonight, so I'm lucky you're all here because you're going to see some stuff that can give you some kind of imaginations of where we can go with the future. This is my friend Chris. I call him my brother from another mother. And Chris called me up about a year ago and he says, "Hey Bob." I said, "Chris, what's up?" He says, "We've inherited an oil platform off the coast of California. The operator has gone bankrupt and now Platform Holly belongs to us. All of us in the room, state of California. We actually all own a platform and we all have the ability to tell the state what we like to see done with this platform for the future." Platform, so I tell Chris, "Where's it located, Chris?" And Chris says, "It's located," there's a little beam here on this light here. Let's see, oh, there we go. It's Platform Holly, here's Santa Barbara. It's located right here off of Coal Oil Point. And we're down here off the Channel Islands. Here we have Anacapa.
Yes.
It's located in about 200 feet of water off of Coal Oil Point.
Yes.
This is the part of the structure that we see up above the water. And this is Platform Holly, that we all now own. And this is the lower portion of the structure. What's going to take place in this decommissioning is they're going to take out these pipes back here. That's actually the oil drilling pipes called the conductors. This is your water level here. So the upper part's going to be all cleaned up. All these wellheads are all going to be capped. And what we're going to have left is this massive structure that sits on a muddy bottom. So initially, this is how the platform was brought out off of Goleta, brought out in a barge, and it's sunk down to basically a bottom that looks like this. Now, even though this bottom looks like a mud bottom, there's trillions, not millions, of little teeny worms living. I've done mud samples with Scripps Institute. So it's full of life. But regardless, there's not a reef, it's just a flat mud bottom. You have halibuts and shrimp and things like that. Now this is at the bottom of Platform Holly. I'm down at 210 feet, or the deepest that I ever dove. You only have less than 2 to 3 minutes at that bottom depth because of your air supply. This is looking up at the surface, and this is actually a very large school of fish. Almost maybe the size of this room, if you can imagine that when you're down at that depth. The columns, it's kind of like standing underneath the Empire State Building or the Eiffel Tower, thank you, exactly. I was born in France, I should know that one. This is what it looks like, the bottom, the shell mats. So the shells drop down from the surface and they litter the bottom. Unfortunately, I keep thinking I got pictures of these big fish down there, but I've never found the pictures. You get nitrogen narcosis at that depth. You know what that is? It's like you've had about 6 martinis. And my buddy's going, Bob, it's time out of here. And I'm looking around trying to photograph these big fish. I haven't found the slides yet, but I know I have them somewhere. This is the upper part of platform holly, and this is a cabezon, which is hundreds of them, if not more, living on the platform. And here's its egg mass. So when we went out, this picture is almost taken 40 years ago. I did log 5,000 dives in my lifetime, but I haven't been diving in the last 7 years for a variety of reasons. But I'm about ready to change that this coming year. This is a cabezon again, with its eggs. And here's your cabezon here. And the males do the guarding of the eggs. This is a microscope picture, of course. And these are the eyeballs of the baby cabezons, these little round dots here. It's kind of cool that at that stage of life they still have those big eyes. This is platform holly, a different spot on the platform where you have the eggs of the cabezon. Now, this cabezon here is about the size of a dime, extremely small. So we would see the eggs on the platforms, and then a few months later we'd see the little baby cabezons all swimming all around the platform. And at some point they get rather large, up to 2.5 feet. And this one here with Hillary Hauser, Heal the Ocean, that's on platform holly. And this is very interesting that Suzanne keeps bringing this up for me. It's been documented on these offshore platforms out here. They're 12 times more productive than any coral reef remaining in the world. And the proceedings are from the Academy of Sciences website. Dr. Milton Love at UCSB has done a lot of research on the Boccaccio rockfish, but the diversity, you can see in this picture here, there's a lot of rock scallops in here, there's a rock scallops here, and within this matrix, this is down at about 120 feet of water, and we're looking at something about the size of this room here, okay, coming up out of here. So it's the structure, it's kind of hard. We have some divers in here, and here's the rock scallops. The platforms are just covered with rock scallops, and because it's an oil platform, scuba divers can't necessarily get out there to take that marine life, so it's become a marine sanctuary. This is a purple sea urchin, and just the diversity. It's on top of anemones with mussels. We have a little teeny nudibranch. This is even smaller than a dime. And you have, as I showed last time, the decorator crab. And this crab here takes the sponge in the area that it lives, and it attaches it to its back side of its shell so that it can camouflage itself from predators that come in. I actually have notes, so I should watch what I'm doing here. Thanks to my partner, Suzanne. I'm trying to get me more organized for some of these talks. This is Andy on one of the cross members. It's covered with these white anemones. And you can run your hand across the anemones. It's like across a wet chamois. They're just really silky and smooth. And he's checking his gauge to make sure that we're not staying down there too long. And those are juvenile rockfishes, platform holly. So there's tremendous amount of life releasing sperm and eggs into the water column, and that goes out through our entire channel, everywhere. It spreads across our entire channel. Hermosa Beach, where I grew up, 4th generation, it's highly populated. We're depending on the ocean more and more as a clean food supply. And at one time, between San Pedro, Point Hueneme, and Santa Barbara, some of the most productive fishing grounds in our world. Just like Oxnard here has some of the alluvial fans, some of the best farming in the world takes place out here. I, as a commercial fisherman, abalone diver, sea urchin diver for a very short period of my time underwater, You know, we love fish, and a lot of it's coming now from Vietnam, China, the Philippines, and they don't necessarily have fishing game. They don't quite have the same standards that we do when it comes to aquaculture or even commercial fishing. So I believe that we should take advantage of our resources here within our own channel, but we're running out of limited space where we can actually go out and gather it. Here's Santa Barbara, a fishing boat coming in. There's a squid boat. They go out here and around the Channel Islands for squid. So we depend on the ocean for a lot of the food that we see here locally. Now, the mussels grow to a tremendous size on the platforms because they're out in clean water. They're not on the coastal areas around the rocks and dealing with sands and stuff like that. And one interesting thing that we discovered was when the platforms are pushed off that barge, they sit vertically on the surface of the ocean. And during that time period, the mussel spat covers the entire platform. So then when they invert it and sit it down on the seabed floor, you have mussels growing down 70, 80 feet underwater. You never see that around the Channel Islands. It's an intertidal, in the intertidal zones, in the first 30, 15 feet. You don't necessarily find mussels down deep because the mussel spat is really in the first 30, 40 feet of water. That's where most of the life is, that barnacles and sea urchins and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of unique in a way when you look at the platforms as like a geologist or a biologist and go, wow, we could coat this structure and then we can drop it down into deep water, and at those depths they don't have the same predators, the starfish, down deep as they do in the shallower areas. And the last time I gave a talk explaining about the Bio Valley program that we took. But this is our good friend Frank Hester, who's passed on. But he was a top fishery biologist, and we, as a company, I'd like to associate with scientists and people who gave us credibility. And so we applied for a grant from the federal government, $22,000 grant, and it was really a feasibility study for a cannery right here in Oxnard. Now you're going to hear my heartbeat.
Okay, still working?
Very good.
Let me get that a little closer. Yolehiu.
Okay, so this back. Oh, that's so exciting. So pushing the button. So here we are. Rick Williams from here. He was here last time. Flew in from Hawaii. This is our harvesting off the platforms. Here we are at the cannery, right over here. They were a cannery for farmers for canning beans. They were looking for alternatives in mussels. It was a great feasibility study. And it was one way that you could go out at the right time of year and harvest mussels, because a lot of times you have a red tide, different times of things like that. So we could go out at the right time of year, harvest a ton of mussels, can them, and then sell them throughout the year and have something that we could export to different places. So there's our canned mussels packed down here in Oxnard. Now, platform holly was the first place on this planet where people looked at the lower part of the structure and said, it's not being utilized. And maybe we can start growing aquaculture, do seed farming. So 40 years ago, these guys from up north, Cayucas, put this habitat. This isn't 30 feet of water. It's got a metal grill on it. And what they would do is they would pump the kelp, the red abalone need kelp. They would pump the kelp down in these tubes from the surface, so you didn't have to send divers down there to put the kelp in it. And it was just a test. Now, those are baby Boccaccio rockfish. There's thousands of rockfish in this picture. This holly in particular, of all platforms, really has a large community of Boccaccio rockfish, which is on the endangered list. I don't know if it's taken off, but it's a really great fish to eat, and it's and here they are. Now, as you go down deeper on the platform, what we found was the juvenile rockfish are up in the upper maybe up to 60, 50 feet of water. As you get down into 100 feet, this habitat was at 100 feet, you get into the bigger, larger picacho fish. And when I was at the bottom of Platform Holly, I'm still trying to find those pictures. I know I saw a really big one swimming around. So that's how it goes, the pecking order. John McMullen, who unfortunately can't be here again, of AbLab, he had a facility here at Point Wainimi. And actually, John McMullen was the first guy, I would like to take credit that we were, but he sent me some notes, and he was thinking outside the box. And he wanted to harvest mussels, and he wanted scallops. And so he built this big unit. You can kind of get an idea of the diver, the size of it, and it's strapped on to the lower part of the platform. This is inside his habitat, and unfortunately, John, are you here tonight? Good. Yay! No, John Richards is. Okay, don't spill the beans, John. Somehow the lid had opened up on the top of this habitat, and Mr. Cabazon was in there having a meal. A big meal. And I never wanted to tell John, how'd you get that picture, Bob? Well, the screen was kind of opened up, and I put my camera down in there, and you can see the little empty abalones. Cabazon was having a good old time. So this is another habitat. I was very fortunate. There were other people who went swim at the time, and because I was diving so much on the platform, they allowed me to get pictures of things that you're seeing here for the first time. And Wynn, his idea was to make it like an aquarium, glass aquarium. And that way the sunlight came into the habitat, and to get the algae growing, then he would put the abalone into it. This is one of Wynn's I just love looking. This is a platform that's been decommissioned, a platform Hope that was off Carpinteria. The 4 H's were pulled out a few years ago. And you can just see the amount of space that's available below the platform for any kind of futuristic idea. Wynn Swint, unfortunately, had a diving accident. He's no longer around. But he was one of the neatest people I've ever... he was just absolutely genius, making cages and putting them in different types of habitats, and really way ahead of his time. These are the little baby. These are about the size of a dime, or you can see with his cage there, actually a little bit smaller than that. I'm in the fin business. I make swim fins for 40 years. And I got a picture the other day. These are my fins called the Force Fin, and this is a diver that's used my product for 25 years. It's off the Farallon Islands. And I got this picture from him, and something dawned on me that was kind of interesting, that in salmon farming, they have to keep the salmon inside these big, giant cages. There's thousands of them inside these big floating structures, and they have to feed them, and they have to give them antibiotics because there's so many of them in there. So they have to, it's not really I'm not into farming salmon. If you know anything about it, you're better off getting salmon from Alaska fishermen. But, you know, it is what it is. But I thought about this for a minute, and I thought, you know, there's something kind of interesting. There's a reason why I have this photo. On Platform Holly, we don't have to put a net around anything. The fish are all there. They're organic. They're eating the food that's coming through the water. And they like it there. It's a habitat. It's been there for 50 years. So they all hang underneath there. So we're maybe do like a future, we don't want to tell the fish this, future aquaculture where they're having an invasive fish in Florida called the lionfish. Somebody released a lionfish from their aquarium in Florida. It's taken over the Caribbean. It's eating every single thing that's out there. Well, I saw these great kids. They've come up with a remote ocean vehicle that has arms out front, and they're zapping them and creating a huge industry of lionfish. You have to be very careful if you get pricked by one of them, that you won't live. Now, this, I did a show at the Cabrillo Marine Museum, Suzanne and I did about 40 years ago, and everybody gets all uptight about the platforms and the structures, and Japan, they're building structures like this to attract fish, and it was very interesting. They started in very shallow waters, and they moved these types of structures out into deeper water. But look at the industrial size. Who knows what they're up to now? I mean, but look at the size of these structures. Think about the money it costs the Japanese government to install these things on basically flat mud bottoms where they actually can create a habitat. So the idea of using structures in the ocean is a good one. And if we have one like platform holly already there, it could save us a lot of money if not moved. Now this is a picture of one of their concrete. They made some out of concrete, they made some out of steel. They tried all sorts of different types of materials. Now this is down deep with a Boccaccio rockfish. And you get the size of them, but there's so many of them down there that if they were managed correctly, and I say managed correctly, not just go down and rape and pillage, but maybe just take a few every week or every day, you could have a very sustainable army. This is again platform holly, and here, those are little baby juvenile Boccaccio rockfish. So remember, down deeper are the big boys, and up in the shallow area. But it's such a productive reef. The idea of the state. Oh, see, it cost us $350 million to pull this platform out because how much money did they have? 20 million.
20 million is the bond.
20, they have a bond, yeah.
For 20 million.
Company did.
The state's already allocated 100 million, but the budget's 300.
Yeah, 300, that's what it's going to cost all of us. So it'd be nice to save at least $300 million by just leaving it the structure there. These are some ideas I drew up over the years of just, when this platform came up for decommissioning, I wasn't really focused on this. I'm working on some other projects that are more important. But I thought about it, and I thought, okay, we could clear cut some of the structure, because we don't want to take all that marine life off because it's beneficial for everything else happening around it. And we could farm with ROVs, ocean vehicles, remote ocean vehicles. This one here, of course, is hooked to the surface of the cable. This could be scallop beds. This could have sand in it. This guy over here could be picking mussels off. This is an area up here, a growth area for crabs, little ceramic tubes that crabs can sit in, because they'll be hanging out here. But then if you give them a little habitat, they come in here, and you just come along and go, thank you, choo. And I've got a vacated one hole, another crab moves into it for the next operation. This is what a ROV looks like. They have these manipulators. So as commercial fishermen out here in our community start losing the areas where they can fish and less fish, their children could be sitting at home. You know how these kids play with these little funny things in their hands? Well, instead of playing with the funny little things in their hand, they could be with a little joystick sea farming here in Oxnard or Santa Barbara or wherever. They could be out here 24 hours a day, going down around the platform and performing, whether it's science projects or aquaculture, who knows? It's up to our imagination. I'm a grandparent, and this is Brim assisting Grandpa with, she's helping me with, we got a little fish on too, so she put a couple little fish for me. And these are crabs. Don't look like crabs, huh? With a little pincher, so give me some crabs. So we could put habitats around this platform on the bed. We could spread out over half a mile away from the platform and really create a very productive fishing area. This guy's Dr. Phil Newton. He's one of my mentors, and he's the founder of Cal Dive and Oceaneering. He's the top sub-designer in the world. Anything that's been done in the ocean, deep water stuff, is Phil's. He's Canadian. And he won the highest civilian award from the Canadian government. He's Canadian. I don't hold that against him. This is, he received the Jules Verne Award from France. It's the highest, most prestigious award that you can receive. And he was in my office the other day, and I was showing him some of the stuff he gave me, and I showed him the Jules Verne picture, and he goes, "Bob, I never got the Jules Verne Award." I said, "Well, thanks for reminding me of that. That's pretty cool." That's Buzz Aldrin. I mean, this is one of his ideas. He, like I say, he's my mentor. So he has these ideas of guys living down on the bottom of the ocean where we have these volcanic mounds, thousands of feet down. So 210 feet below a platform would be a cakewalk for this guy. And he trains the astronauts. The big arm on the space shuttle that goes out and reaches up and says Canada on it, that's his invention. That's the kind of stuff he does. So I thought, well, this could be below the platform, and you could be, or maybe out further away from the platform, but all of this is reality. This is one of his submarines that the Nuco sub, he's built a lot of submarines and all sorts of stuff. So I thought, well, you could give submarine rides off the platform. You know, people pay for tourism. He has a submarine in the Cayman Islands that goes down every day that pay a few $1,000s. You get to go down and a couple $100s. It's not cheap. Okay, what does decommissioning mean? When you hear people go, we're going to decommission these platforms. It's a process of getting rid of all oil and gas operations and bringing the seafloor back to its pre-lease condition. So when the oil industries came to put these platforms in here, the agreement was, well, when you're done, it goes out. Okay, I found out yesterday, you won't believe this, got notes, $35 billion business in the next 4 years worldwide. $35 billion, that's a chunk of change. To start taking platforms around the world, they're done with their operation, pull them up. Well, I'm in for that. The only problem is most of them don't have the kind of marine life that we have out here. The ones off of England, the North Sea, they're just bare pipes. And there's some fish swimming around it, but you don't have the diversity, the uniqueness that we have out here. So that's plugging the wells. And this is always my favorite thing. You can't see the forest through the trees, you know, and focusing on the small detail of trees and missing the big picture of the forest. Isn't that, you know, I found this slide, I thought, yeah, that kind of fits in. We really need to think differently. So the old 1960s was solution to pollution was dilution. It sounds pretty weird, but that's what they were talking about back in the 1960s. So I like to visualize what we can do and what things we have. How can we repurpose them for something more beneficial for our community? So that's the outlook out the window. I have a friend here, Brett here, who's come all the way up from Orange County, and he approached me about half a year ago and says, you know, I'd like to use these for heliports, or what do we call them, Brett?
Vertiports.
Vertiports, yeah, vertiports. So this is the first idea, possibly. A lot of people have suggested this. The ports is his idea, very unique. A lot of people propose a hotel on an oil rig. Sounds like a kind of neat idea, you know. But with Platform Holly, you're sitting on an area that's the second largest oil seep in the world. Okay? And I found out it's 500,000 years that oil has been seeping up out of the ground out there. And it's releasing every day 100 to 150 barrels of liquefied petroleum. Sounds kind of cool. It's not a great place for a honeymoon. So if you want to invest in a hotel, I could think of much better places like Hawaii or something like that. And it's of using it for a port, or transporting people off the coast. That's a brilliant idea. And skipping to different platforms, possibly a hospital out there. Web communications. You could have a little sub, and all this up here, people live in here, and a boat brings you out. But one of the problems is you can heliport in But one of the problems when it's rough, it's very difficult to go from a boat over. I don't know. I wouldn't invest a lot in it initially. Now, another great idea was to give it to the birds. Why not? They have a couple of piers right off the UCSB that were once oil platform structures. They cut them off, and they've got thousands of birds nesting right off there. There's a big estuary right off the university. So give it to the birds, and down below here, we can have all these little homes on the seabed floor. Now, this still is a navigational hazard. Okay, we got rid of all the oil stuff, got rid of the upper structure, and we have something that possibly looks like this. So from the shoreline, you really wouldn't see it, but you see a lot of birds flying around out there. And so that's kind of a visualization of what you would possibly see. That's on the charts, but as we own it, state of California, all of us in the room own it, we're liable if some boat runs into it. What? Sign language? Oh.
No.
Oh.
Just keep
Sign
saying.
language. We're doing okay?
You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
thank you. Okay, so give it to the birds. There's the brown pelicans on platform building. Now, some other guy the other day was at the state lands, and he says, let's put a big wind farm out there. Oh boy, that doesn't sound like a good idea with bird migration, birds all flying around. People going, oh shoot. And so, the idea of they want to have a wind farm out there the size of ones in Norway. The blades are hundreds of feet across. So I don't think people off Delita want to see a big wind farm. Now, we could put the wind farms on the backside of these islands. We'd never see them. They don't have to be structured on a platform. They actually free float out in the ocean now. So they can go to deep water. So we could be providing a lot of wind power for this area out of sight, way out there where we wouldn't really see it, and it wouldn't really affect the coastal birds that are flying around. Okay, get in there. Well, I think on this picture here was kind of, not give it to the birds, but the other possibility of other ideas that could possibly we could use platform holly. And this is Rhodes Reef off of Santa Rosa Island. It's a great surf spot for the surfers in Delaware. And it comes up out of about 60, 70 feet of water, fairly close to the surface. You definitely don't want to run across it at nighttime and not know it's there. But it's a great surfing spot, and it's also a spot where there's ironically, a big shipwreck on the bottom. I'll think of the name of the shipwreck, but it's on the bottom there. It ran onto Rhodes Reef and it's sunk. I'll think of the name of it. So I got thinking, well, Rhodes Reef, what can we do here? Well, this is platform holly. We could create these big hydraulic pistons, okay? Now, going out to the platform is a 16,000 volt cable that got put out there. Because the state of California says, we don't want you running those diesel generators on that platform every day, you're polluting. So we'll want you to run a cable out to the platform and power it from shore. 16,000, I don't know what 16,000 volts is. I called one of my engineering friends, he goes, Bob, that's a lot of power. So, okay, well that's a lot of power, so that's good. We could create a lot of power. Now the only problem is, we're kind of liable, again, this is in shallow water, so here's some surfers, like Rhodes Reef, and this, when a wave comes, it pushes this big piston down, and it's on magnets, it's common technology, they've got wave things like this all around the world now, going up and down. Doesn't produce a lot of power, but it's beginning to show promise, okay? And you have to do something sometime, somewhere. Oh, yeah, and I can rotate it around, rotate 360. So I can rotate the structure to make sure I had the best angle for the waves coming in, because waves don't always necessarily come in the same way all the time. Then I thought, well, that's a little complicated. Let's just leave it shallow. Let's put a cap on it, and it will create a waveform for surfers. So we charge people money. We own it. in the state of California. It's like Hearst Castle, right? You want to go out and surf out here, you got to pay a fee, not much. And we have a boat out there, a safety boat, state of California. Make sure that you pay. And if you have a problem, we can pick you up. They do that stuff. So that wouldn't be employing people.
Or you could use the vertiport for evacuating
Yeah,
surfers.
pick them up out of the water. And then the lower part here is, okay, we grow kelp here, and we can have aquaculture zones on the platform again, so we can be utilizing. You know, as much as everyone loves sea life, everything's about economics in today's world. It's really nice. Yeah, there are a lot of pretty fish out there, but aquaculture could really, this could employ a lot of people, and it would offer us a really clean supply of seafood. And it's sustainable. We could do it in a new way. We don't just the reason why a lot of the fish and game laws got passed over the years was we'd go out and we'd try to get every single abalone we could. I mean, that was it. You know, there were no limits in those days. And then pretty soon, Fish and Game says, you know, you guys can't take so much. We got to leave some of it in the ocean. So that's what the platforms could be utilized for. This is even a crazier idea. So I thought, okay, I don't want the liability problem, right? With the boat running across, and we don't want to get sued. You know how people sue this, sue that. We'll be paying millions of dollars. Somebody runs their boat across and their dog falls into the water. So I thought, okay, why? Oh, and we have the oil lines. We have these oil lines that are running out to the platform. Well, I heard the other day, listen, this is how crazy this is. We're not going to take out those oil pipelines because it'll be too disruptive to the marine environment. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of weird. You're going to tear out the whole platform, destroy millions of tons of marine life, but you're going to leave the oil pipelines because taking them out would be disruptive. That's cuckoo. So we could take those oil pipelines, we could re-sleeve them, we could use high pressure air, right? And pump it out. And imagine, well, I don't know if anyone ever had an air mattress, but I know a little bit about air mattresses. So here we go. These are counterweights. This is, the air is out. It's at 80 feet of water. No harm, no foul, okay? But we're going to do some surfing. So we pump it up and bring it up close to the surface. And what's really cool with the surf mat, we can have different compartments in it. So we get all these great scientists and oceanographers, and we could pre-form. They've already been talking about doing this in different surf spots around the world. So this is nothing new. It's just, I see things, people have ideas for it. I think, well, then maybe we could incorporate something like this. So now, the cool part is about this is, these are generators right here. And these lines, being we're in a nautical museum, these lines are wrapped around, generators.
Oh no, don't do this to me.
Good to know which way to go. No! Go back.
Heard it.
Thank you. Okay. So these, as this thing goes up and down, is what would happen when a wave comes across it. It pushes that whole mattress down, and then when the wave goes up, it comes back up again. So you could theoretically have a surf spot, and you could charge people to surf it, and it'll be the ultimate surf spot in the world. It's off the coast enough so people are not going to paddle out from shore to get out there. They have to take a boat, or, you know, and so it'd be a way that we could collect some money utilizing this platform. At the same time, we could be providing electrical power while people are surfing. Kind of a fun idea. So, in all reality, I think this is what we're going to end up with in the state of California. I think this is what this is a home run if we go for this. The hotel and all these other things are maybe can happen down the road as people get adaptive to realizing that we can repurpose these platforms for something more beneficial than what they had initially been used for. And so I think the name game is going to be cut it off at 80 feet. Because at that depth, there's no liability for any of us in the room. And take the upper part of it and put stainless steel grilling on it. And I realized the other day, I thought, oh boy, Bob, this is a liability problem. I'd have to have some holes in here. Because, you know, scuba divers, they're going to want to go down underneath this thing. And if they run out of air, they can't, they have to have, we're going to have holes in this thing. So there'll be holes in it, so people can, if they go down underneath it, dive down a little bit deeper, something like that. So this is the mat. This would be sitting right here. And this is a release buoy. It comes up to the surface. So when a boat comes out, they click a button, and underwater, remember we have that power, up comes a buoy to the surface, and the boat hooks onto it. And when they're done, they click a button, and the thing wheels the cable back down underwater. So there's no buoy floating around on the surface and creating any kind of problem. And here again, it's a full reef with all the fish swimming around it, and everybody's happy. This is what it would look like with taking, and I think would employ people. Get a lot of people who cared about the environment. We get them to say, we're going to take everything that's up here, down to 80 feet, we're going to just push it down to this net. And some will fall down to the seabed floor, they'll be fed upon by crabs and everything else. But that screen would really make kind of a cool thing. This is what it would look like. You're at 80 feet, and that's the reef below you, and you have all these fish swimming around you. And actually really be a pretty cool place. Here again, we could have a camera down there, so universities across anywhere in the world, people could watch the activity on this platform. That's a no-brainer. They're doing that all around the world now in coral reefs. We could grow kelp, experiment with growing kelp here. In this shallow, here's a diver planting kelp. This is 80 feet. And this is a sonic beacon that we can locate when we come out with a boat. We know where the platform is if the visibility is dirty. So that's kind of where I think people will come to the end where people will make the most sense at that point. This is some of the algae that I've seen growing on platform Holly, which is kind of unique. They're talking about algae for food, for energy, for pharmaceuticals, for all sorts of stuff. You'd be surprised kelp is in toothpaste. So this is again, anytime I saw something on a platform like this that was unique, I would get a picture of it. This is very unique, seeing this particular type of algae. Now, Gladstones. Everyone know where Gladstones is?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it's a great habitat for white sharks.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of unusual. You know, an underwater person you hear about, why do sharks they congregate around the sea lion rookeries. We know that because that's their food supply. What the heck are they doing out in front of Gladstones? And these people have flown these drones around, and they got all these little sharks swimming around out there. So they're very white. They're just swimming around out there in front of Gladstones. And luckily their teeth are real small. They can only eat little small fish. And so the other day I was talking to one of my engineers in my company. I said, what are you up to lately? He goes, we're replacing the power grid out in front of Gladstone's restaurant. I said, what do you mean power grid? We're replacing the power grid out in front of Gladstone's. I said, really? So check this out. This is really interesting. Here's Poseidon, right? He's got his fort, and he's got like electrical power going out into the ocean. I think, well, what's going on here? What's happening? Well, this is what's going on out there. When the city of Los Angeles gets too much electrical power, it has to do something with it. So it dumps the power into the ocean. It's like going to the bank and the bank manager's dumping money out into the street. Well, what's going on around here? This is absolutely crazy. That's what's sitting out on the bottom of the ocean in front of Gladstone, below the sand. So that's why all the sharks are swimming around out there. So I thought, this is really interesting with that cable and platform hauling and the dumping power into the ocean. And maybe, with the future of wind power, the future of solar, and transmission of power around to different locations, the power we generate on our roofs of our homes, to power our electric cars. What can we do with that 16-volt power cable that's going out to this platform? So that got me thinking, and I heard about the Baghdad battery. You ever heard about the Baghdad battery? Well, it's disappeared now, but it was a clay jar with an asphalt top with copper and an iron nail in it. And when you put salt water into it, it gives you 2 volts of power. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And I found out, doing a little research, that this was a lithium battery, which is not recyclable, which has its environmental sides to it. Nice to have an electric car with lithium batteries. You need 15 of these cups to make a saltwater battery. I thought, okay, we're in the ocean, right? We've got lots of space. We're in salt water. And a saltwater battery can be charged and discharged much better than the lithium batteries. You know what happens with lithium batteries? Eventually you're wondering, what is not holding a charge very well, all right? So then you got to throw away your car or your lithium batteries. So I thought, okay, here's our platform. It's cut off at 80 feet. And we make these bags full of salt water with anodes and cathodes. And we have the university. We got a lot of smart people in our country. They can come up, saltwater battery. They can make something better than the Baghdad battery. But clay, copper, and iron nail, 2 volts of power. And so I'm not an electrician, but I know if you put 2 and 2 together, and 2 and 2, pretty soon you got 24 volts, you got 48 volts. You could create and store a lot of power. So as the guy in the White House says sometimes, when the wind stops and the sun goes down, what are we going to do? Right? TV goes off, babies. So, well, you know what I mean? The power goes out. Hey, honey. So the idea was we have during the daytime, if we've got all this energy we're dumping into the ocean off of Los Angeles, why not dump it into our big saltwater farm off the platform Holly? And then at nighttime, we just pull all that power back into shore. And in the daytime, we put that energy back out in those saltwater batteries. If there's a problem with a saltwater battery, it's just salt water. Lithium, lead batteries, and Suzanne brought up to me, one of the reasons lithium batteries are kind of a problem, they get hot. And then they get hot, they create fires. So, and then I looked into centrifuges. They have centrifuges that are spinning 2,500 RPMs a minute. That's fast. And so if they come apart, it's a disaster. So they have these centrifuges at electrical power plants. So when the power drops down, they pull off that centrifuge to keep the lights so they're steady. So if we're in a third world right now and the generators are, these lights would be flickering, they go down and they go back up again. So we could put centrifuges. So if something happened to a centrifuge in the ocean, it's not going to take a building apart. It's in the ocean, and we can structurally build for it. So there's all sorts of different interesting things that we could do. Another crazy idea was they're building a lot of places on our planet. They've run out of areas for reefs, for fishermen. So they're creating with solar power. They have an anode and cathode. They put wire into the ocean, and pretty soon calcium carbonate, the same stuff, the mussels, everything's built out of the calcium carbonate shells in the ocean. So you could build on the seabed floor this is platform holly here. These are mussels. I was in the mussel business, so mussels we have here. These are another little habitats that we can go down. So this structure here would be powered electrical. They're called electric reefs. So we could have hundreds of these things on the seabed. You would never even know they're out there. This guy says, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay. And there's the little fish. So the little fish can hide inside the structure, just like they do with the mussel shells on the platforms. They hide within there. When they get big enough, they come out and hopefully survive. Well, this was, one more, we're almost at the end of this show. This was the charter boat, scuba boat in Santa Barbara, and they can come out, the buoy comes up to the surface, the divers go down, they have a fun time, look at each other, blow bubbles, and then you have your energy storage devices sitting down here on the seabed floor. So it could be training, aquaculture projects, all sorts of, it's unlimited with UCSB. Now, the big picture. Watch out. This is made by Saab. This just came out. This is the first autonomous vehicle that charges itself underwater, dumps its data into a data port, and then goes back out along the seabed floor at 10,000 feet of water. That's where most of the drilling is taking place on our planet right now, off of Africa, South America. It's in depth so deep that there's no way they can put a lot of the structures, and so it's all subsea. So this guy comes into its little charging station and gets a charge, and then goes back out and videotapes, does surveys. So it's all planned out, all pre-planned in a computer. And I think that's the idea of having a cable from the surface, especially if we have to cut the thing off. You're not going to be up there in a boat trying to run a cable with an ROV. It's just too expensive. So this guy will live on the platform, and when it comes time for it to come to the surface, it would come up, and you would clean it, do whatever you need maintenance, and then just throw it back in the water again. And it could actually go hunt fish. That's what I was talking about, those lionfish. It could actually very nicely find a nice big bocaccio rockfish and give it a little electric shock and put it into a container and send it to the surface. So we could be managing the platform. So here's platform hauling, and we have to decide in the next year and a half. There's a lot of hearings, committees, and I think we have to make our voice vocal to save that marine life and possibly repurpose the platform in the future. Our coastlines, we have the most beautiful coastlines, and eventually we will look out off the coast and possibly not see these structures anymore, but below the surface, hopefully we can think in a different way. This is San Miguel Island. I spent a lot of time on San Miguel Island. Maybe be fun to do just a Channel Island show with all the pictures I have of 40-some years of diving underwater around the Channel Islands. We've got a lot of really cool pictures of stuff they don't normally see that out there anymore. Like I say, our resources are taxed. This is Crooks Point. Herbert Lesser and his wife are buried over here, the king and queen of San Miguel Island. And the Chumash Indians lived out on the island up to 14,000 years ago. They were living off the mussels. This is an Indian midden on San Miguel Island. And they were living off the mussels, abalones, primarily mussels. What was kind of interesting on the middens, you could start at the bottom down here, and you find the big giant abalone. And as you worked your way up towards the top, it got down to little keyhole limpets. So they in themselves were taking a pretty good share of what they could get out of the ocean, out around the Channel Islands. This is platform Hilda that was removed, and these are the conductor pipes that would be taken out on platform hauling, the drilling pipes. You can see the incline of this mussel mound, very similar at the Channel Islands. This is a side scan sonar of what's left of platform hauling. On the bottom, this is the high point. This is where the conductors, the oil stuff went. What they were going to propose doing is they blow the lower part of the platform off with explosives, and it kills a lot of fish. I talked to some of the divers. They just said, Bob, we just killed millions of fish taking out these platforms, the last 4 platforms. I said, well, we got to educate people. That's just not a good idea. So this is what is on the seabed. Now, even at this state, there's lots of crabs and fish all living above. This is down in 100 feet of water. This was the platform that I spent most of my diving on, this platform Hilda, which has now been removed. And so you look out there now and you don't see the platform. But they could have saved this lower part of the platform as easy as it's not removing it. It would have really been beneficial for the overall fishery. This is some of the marine life that was on the platform. This is my favorite shot from Platform Hill. Those anemones are 3 feet long. This is the school I went to in Hermosa Beach, and this goes through my brain on a daily basis. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And that's so true, that if we don't start having a vision towards a different way of looking at things, and we kill marine life on the rigs out here because we're anti-oil, or we don't like the oil companies, or we don't like someone's policy, I think that's a really bad direction to start seeing people going, where they get that kind of destructiveness. So we have to have vision for the future. Our son Alex, this lobster he's 4 years old here, this lobster was delivered to us for dinner. And we thought, gosh, let's take it back to the ocean. Let's take it back, we don't need it. Anyway, it's too big. I like the little smaller ones. So there's Alex, and then we're proud parents. He's with President Obama for 1 hour. You know who this guy is? Secret Service. Following him everywhere. Alex made him nervous. So this is our kid Alex, and there's our president, and he's explaining. He's on his way right now to Tahiti, where he is experimenting with bringing up CO2. The CO2 is down, really kept down in the ocean, not near the surface. He's going to bring some of that up and spread it on the reef and see what happens to the coral. I told him this morning, I said, don't kill too much of it, Alex. He says, well, I don't think he's going to have that much of an effect on it, but they will be able to monitor it chemistry-wise. I'd always like to thank my wife, Suzanne, for all her help and everything I do, because without her, I wouldn't be here. And this is Shane Anderson, who introduced me to the platforms. I always like to thank him, and his wife, Jenny. This is my former partner, Andy, and before he passed away, his last words to his wife were, Bob, tie up the boat. So I feel I'm wearing his watch proudly, and I feel that in memory of Andy and all our friends, it's time to tie up the boat. And we have to look at our planet, we have to look at our oceans, and we have to kind of have a new way of looking at things and move forward to the future positively. Thank you. Lithium. Would you like a lithium drink tonight?
Lithium is poison.
What happened to the cannery?
It's closed down. That whole industry. Yeah, they were the biggest cannery for canning the string beans here. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Give a chance. Ask people loudly if they would like to have any questions.
Oh,
Loudly and clear. Any questions?
any questions?
Anyone?
Okay.
Do you need a timetable for any of the things coming on? Do you need dates for any decisions by the state?
Yes, actually,
Year and a half.
no, California State Lands will be moving, starting late fall or early winter. They will be giving their interagency meetings about what to do with the platform, the jacket. They're already plugging the wells and pulling the drill equipment and doing the cleanup. What's going to happen with the jacket, which is the structure, they'll start having their interagency meetings at the end of the year, and they're going into what they call scoping hearings, which is where they ask the public in January, is the schedule now. So anytime between now and January, if you have something to say, the people to say it to are, of course, your state legislators, the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office, because the lieutenant governor is on state lands, and to California state lands.
Do they make the final decision?
Yeah, it will be. And at this point,
Who else is involved?
okay, well,
It's not
here's
just
the
state lands.
unfortunate part of this point. California state lands, it will be their decision, but they are managed by our state legislators. And probably I think Annabeth Jackson is here as well as with us.
That was it, but state land saved us from BHP military. They made the final decision. not to-
State groups which did that are the same ones that are saying completely move at this point.
Well, how far is Holly from the coast?
2 miles.
Miles.
Actually, 2.75 miles. Because I asked state lands what happens with rising if all of a sudden you're at 3 miles. And they said no, that they got a decision from the Supreme Court that it remains at that boundary. No matter what happens with our coast. Well, but also out here, you have Gale and Grace are decommissioning, which are the same story, except for they're in federal waters. And I think Chevron, yeah,
One that's only 5 miles or so.
yeah, but 3 miles is the state limit.
They wanted to put an LNG platform on that one as well, but it was a Texas company and the aquanauts.
Right, so but Chevron, I think, has taken responsibility for decommissioning Gale and Grace because of their prior
They
ownership.
don't have the same marine life.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
All of our California ones, it's just we're most familiar with Holly, which is why we have come to
We
do it.
don't have the movement down here, allergies. I'm the ages of allergies.
Yeah. So yeah, no, Gale and Grace are probably as important as Holly. We just aren't as familiar with the issues. Okay. Okay.
We'll see you next month.